Today, buenas and good evening. This oversight hearing is being conducted by the Committee on Education, Public Safety, and the Arts, and is hereby called to order at 5:39 Chamorro Standard Time. Notice the hearing was disseminated to all local media outlets on January 25th, 2024, with the second notice provided on January 30th, 2024. Notice of the hearing was also made known on the Guam Legislature's website and the Government of Guam Public Notices portal. This evening, the committee is holding an oversight hearing on the Guam Department of Education with the following items on the agenda: status update on facilities and maintenance, capital improvement projects, public health compliance, Head Start quality improvement plan implementation, reorganization of GDOE, consolidating closure of schools, status of Typhoon, Mawar, DLAN projects, DODEA discussions, proposed fiscal year 2025 budget, air conditioning vendor update, shares facilities for double session schools, and public comment. I'd like to welcome and recognize my colleagues joining us today. Senator Joanne Brown, Senator Telataidagui, Sidoswasi. And I'd like to now go over the general rules of conduct. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair before speaking and shall state their name for record-keeping purposes. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or individual testifying is not permitted. The chairperson of the committee may order the removal from a hearing any member of a legislator in Guam who fails to observe proper decorum pursuant to the 37 Guam Legislature's standing rules. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in the removal from the hearing by the host. And at this time, I'd like to ask everybody who plans on giving a testimony that they be sworn in by our Sergeant at Arms. So again, anyone who plans on providing testimony to the committee, please rise and be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay. Mr. Chair, you're under oath. You may proceed.
Sidoswasi, Sergeant at Arms. This oversight hearing is part of our legal requirement to conduct monthly oversight hearings of the Guam Department of Education. And I'd like to welcome at this time the Superintendent of GDOE, Dr. Kenneth Swanson. Good evening, Dr. Soup.
Good afternoon, Senators. We're happy to be here and provide the information that you asked for. Most of the content is also covered in the slide deck, but there are a couple that are not, but we will address them.
Okay, you can proceed with the slideshow.
Okay, so I'm moving to the third slide, please, and give you an overview of the presentation. We're going to be talking about, first of all, facility and maintenance and our CIP projects. Also, as they are impacted, impacted by double session schools, refurbishment projects, and a major contract that's underway right now of air conditioning units. And then we'll be discussing the status of public health inspections, Typhoon, Mawar, DLAN projects, and Head Start quality improvement plan will be the last part of our presentation. Next slide. Talking about getting our schools back to full scheduling. As you're aware, we've had some campuses that have been doubled up, and we've been able to make a great deal of progress on decoupling student bodies. So this week, in fact on Wednesday, yesterday, Tamuni Elementary School went back to full schedule with all of their students in session at the same time. Atticao Elementary School is pending a health inspection, and our team has actively been preparing the school to come back into full schedule as well. They're nearly ready. This week, in Arahan Middle School, will finish its repair work and go back into full operation without the alternating groups, and Jose Rios Middle School will as well, because we have been able to complete the air conditioning installation and provide enough classrooms for them all to be there at the same time. So we estimate that Jose Rios will be back to full operation on the 7th of February, and that in Arahan Middle School we'll be back on the 5th. And then Attico Elementary School, which is one of the chief schools that has been held up, is we're scheduling them for reinspection because they had failed April of last year. So but the building itself is ready to go. We have to pass that inspection. That's coming up next week. Next slide. After we get inspection, one of the things that we have had to do to shift our focus to moving schools out of the doubled up environment, we took some of our facilities and maintenance staff off the preparation for inspection to have more hands-on to get those schools ready to go, because I want to be able to get everybody back in their own campus on a full schedule. So we just nearly completed that. The one that's remaining is Astumbo Middle School, but that's a much bigger problem. I'll talk about that in later. So we'll be resuming the inspection cycle right after Attico is inspected. The next two are planned are Harry Truman Elementary and Marshall Sablon Elementary. And then we'll have our teams back at work moving ahead of the inspection process again. With regard to projects that are in full swing at this time, the FB Leon Guerrero refurbishment project contract is currently with the AG's office, and they're doing the final review and preparation to sign off on that and move it forward to the governor. We're estimating that the school will be reopened with its full campus at the beginning of the next school year. So right now they're doubled up, but still making face-to-face every day. The refurbishment project procurement documents is submitted to GOD, to our legal folks for a final review and revision, and working with the contractor. I can't announce the schools yet because the contract's not officially awarded, but that should happen in the next couple of weeks. Our air conditioning project is ongoing. We have four different sets of technicians, the contractor working in all four regions at the same time. I'll provide more information shortly. And then the other projects that are going on, we have through Guam Power, we have a grant project underway with Siemens Electronics. Tamuni Elementary School is getting a lighting retrofitting in all the classrooms, switching it all to LED. Southern High School parking lot lights outdoor being refitted. And then Ordo Chalampago Elementary School classroom lighting and parking lot lighting has all been done. And that's a grant project in partnership with GPA that we're really looking forward to. But that's all been signed off and they're ready to start work. Questions have arisen around our air conditioning contracts, and obviously, since we're trying to move across the whole school system at one time, it's a big challenge, but we're making steady progress. We're working closely with the contractor. As of yesterday, or excuse me, on Monday, they had installed 456 units, and since they started work on October 12th. The focus that we've got them working on is the service of schools that are not on a normal operating schedule. And like I said, we've been able to turn 3 of those around right away. So the service in the schools are preparing for the public health inspections is the other side of it. And we're so in that element to get our schools that are coming up for inspection to have the air conditioning unit, because that's one of the factors that's inspected. The contractors are currently working at Finnegan Elementary, Jose Rios Middle School, and Arahan Middle School, and Price Elementary. And there's, I'll provide a slide here shortly, the schedule of the schools that follow. The vendor, it's important to note that Many of our schools have larger bundled units of air conditioners, not splits, but 5-ton, 10-ton, 20-ton, and then actually on one campus, a 50-ton unit. Those are harder to get on island. They're not usually on the shelf. So the contractor has actually just come back from being in the States to work with the manufacturers. It's a ream and carrier both, so that he can get those larger units shipped. And so what the sequence of the work is, many of the campuses have both kinds of systems, so they're doing the smaller units now that they have in stock, and then they'll cycle back when the heavy-duty units come in. For example, Tamuning Elementary has 10-ton units that are not here yet, but we were able to put splits in enough classrooms to bring everybody back. But when they come back and finish the project with the larger units, the whole campus will be open and we'll have a full capacity capability there. The expected delivery dates for the large units are mid-April to late June, depending on which ones they are. So we'll be working through the school year, but we'll be finished before the start of the next school year. GPA has an engineer that's working with us, and they're doing the quality control on all of the installations. So they're doing the follow-up to make sure that everything's done correctly. The installation data that you've got there, this slide is just to show you that they're working at pretty full capacity, and they're working 7 days a week. So they're working weekends as well. Next slide. The green highlighted on this slide indicates the schools that have been serviced by the contract with everything they were scheduled to get. 10 schools have been serviced through the first round of installation. The yellow highlighted is where the contractor is working currently. And he's servicing 4 schools simultaneously. As I said before, there's one, the way this contract is set up, there's actually 4 contracts, and is obligated to be working in all 4 sectors of the island at the same time. And all the schools in yellow are anticipated to be completed within the next week to week and a half, and then they'll move on to the next one down. With regard to public health inspections, you should have a handout of school inspection status as of the 30th, and that document is current. Our self-inspections have been continuing from our safety liaison team in each school, and they completed that again in January of this year. Inspection dates and demerits are reflected in the document. That's what our folks see. We're getting better and better at predicting what the health inspectors are going to see as well. So the inspections that are put on pause since January, we could focus on getting alternating schools back. We'll resume, and we'll get our inspection cycle going again. It takes about 10 days to do the inspection and get the report back. And as soon as we get the reports, we're also posting them on our website so the community has a chance. It's the full report. They can see the whole thing. 16 schools have been inspected year to date. 15 passed. The one was Attica that did not pass. So they're going to be re-inspected. The schedule that we have for them is on the 5th of February. That inspection will happen again. And 25 schools are still pending inspection, and the projected dates are in the handout. And again, they're a projection. As we're working with our maintenance teams, we want to remind the panel that we're now into the schools that have more serious damage. So in the earlier ones, we were able to get them ready in a couple of weeks. Now it's more like a month or 2, but we have several teams working at the same time. So the challenge is to get them all done, of course. The Typhoon Mawar DLAN status, I don't mind saying I'm disappointed in where this is at this time, but where it is. The two primary local area DLAN projects that were currently in progress with the Department of Administration and GSA and Homeland Security are mold mitigation and the perimeter fencing. I signed off today on updated specifications that are gone back now to the procurement folks at GSA, so that to clarify the scope of work. The mold mitigation.
Sorry, sir. For which project?
For both the
mold
mold
mitigation
mitigation
and
and the fencing. That was the legal review brought a couple of questions up that needed being narrowed in the scope of work so that the contractors would be more able to provide a quality product. And the method we're using is an IFP, actually going out for bid to do this work. And that's being processed through the GSA procurement channels. The next steps is for us to finish our legal review and do the final inspections. The GSA will transmit everything to the Attorney General's office, publish the advertising, the bid submissions will be registered in vendors, and then the week before the bids are opened, the vendors will have an opportunity to visit all the sites, and then the contract is anticipated by the procurement folks we're working with to be ready by mid to late March, to be actually ready to be awarded. Procurement records of mold mitigation and fencing are submitted already through the Attorney General's office and by GSA when they're ready to go. And we'll be able to provide copies of that once they're released. The other items that were not in the slide deck, we'll stop right there with the Head Start. I want to provide you the opportunity to ask questions
Thank you,
on what
Mr.
I just
Superintendent.
presented.
Senator Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask on the issue here, because I know we touched on this before with regards to GSA providing assistance to DOE with regards to the fencing and the mold mitigation, because, you know, we're now, what, 8-9 months from the typhoon. I just want to know what's different, because this was something I know we previously discussed that somehow GSA was providing assistance to the Department of Education. And, you know, you have your own procurement division. You know, I hope things move through. I think we all do, but I'm kind of curious, why is this still through the GSA rather than your own procurement? And how is the funding ultimately, I know that was a substantial price tag we were looking at, how is the funding going to be put in place to address the mold mitigation and the fencing?
Ouch. That's the $20 million question. The funds that the Senate allocated for recovery from Typhoon Mawar that was moved over to the governor's purview, so that the funding to do this work is coming from that fund. The estimate that I saw for the mold mitigation is approaching $10 million. It's less for the for the fencing, but we have a significant number of schools that it's, I think, 29 campuses that need fencing replaced. And what was missing before was that when the individual who's no longer with us, who wrote the specifications, forgot to put gates in and miscalculated the size of gate posts and corner posts, that kind of, and when we get down to doing the work, that's going to be very important. But then the specific requirements that are needed and the certification to do the mold mitigation work was not specified in the contract in the language, and now it is, and it's all been included and tuned up. But
if I can ask, Mr. Superintendent, so who is doing the work differently? Did GSA come back to the table and modify these specifications so that the procurement can move forward? I just want to know what dynamic, if anything, has changed or what's better. Hopefully there's something better. But
there have been several different people in the procurement cycle through the Department of Administration and GSA, so the turnover in that office has slowed the process down. And then we agreed that we needed to have better details in the request for bid. And our attorney who works through the GSA or through the AG's office discovered some other, not discrepancies, but critical areas that were not included in the language. So he proposed that, sent it back, we revised it, and it's back with GSA now to put it out and advertise it.
The one other question I had then is the funding. Where is the funding coming from? And I assume you have to have the funding in place in order to do the procurement.
Yeah.
So
the funding is coming from the $20 million allocation that the legislature made last July, August, for repairs on the schools.
So has the administration committed to put that funding forward? I know there's a whole discussion originally that you came out publicly and relayed that the Department of Education didn't need the money at the time. Has your position changed, or where's the dynamic with regards to that issue?
The last information I have is that funding is still available, and that's what it's going to be charged against. There is an irreverent side of me that might wonder out loud about that process, but I think that all of the players in this process are sincere about making that happen.
Okay, so as far as you know, the administration is now going to fund the $20 million and put forth the money
right,
that the legislature appropriated,
yes.
7-8 months ago?
And hindsight is 20/20. If I had an option to do it differently, we could have done it ourselves sooner.
How confident are you with the ability of GSA at this point? Because again, I mean, you know, I understand you mentioned there's been turnover there at GSA. So how confident are you now that this process will move forward? Because again, these are critical needs of your school system, and yet it has taken an enormous amount of time and effort. More so the time is of concern to get to where we are, assuming that we are able now to actually take off on this process. How confident are you at this point that, you know, a month from now you're going to be able to tell us that, you know, that the contract has been issued and you have a contractor on board or contractors on board, whatever may be the case, to actually get in the schools and address what I think we all recognize were real critical needs up front. I think these things were almost like number 1 and number 2, maybe air conditioning 3, but I think we'd all agree these were really critical priorities.
I am reasonably confident that we're through the difficulties of getting this project, or these two projects, and Mr. Nishihara, who is the attorney for the AG's office, who is monitoring this for us, is confident that this is accurate enough, clean enough, so that it can go through the procurement process in a quick amount of time and get boots on the ground doing the work.
What's your timeline from here now for this to be executed and completed through GSA? What timeline are we looking at? A month, a week, what?
Well, the bid process is going to be out for at least 2 weeks. So, and
2 weeks from today. I just want to get a gauge.
At least 2 weeks, and I haven't had a conversation with them in the last 2 days about the process, but I signed off on the revised documents today, so they can move forward.
We can ask, but so what's the start date? Is the start date as of today, next week? Is it 2 weeks from next week? I mean, when is the...
It's going to have to be advertised for at least 2 weeks, and I need to... So when I see the advertisement come up, I'm going to know, but I can, I'll go back and keep the pressure on it because we need to get it done. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We're getting a positive conversation with the folks who have their hands on it to do the work, and that wasn't always the case before.
Well, we're certainly looking forward. I mean, this has been a long and winding road. I mean, the sooner we get started, of course. I mean, we're always hopeful. But with you, we agree. We needed a definite timeline of starting and actually getting the work done in the schools. I mean, we've long awaited this. This is mind-boggling because this is not the first rodeo. I mean, we've had upteenth typhoons, but this particular one seems to be belabored for such an extended period of time to get us back to some sense of normalcy.
And nobody wants that more than I do, because there's a lot of things that we have to do as an educational institution not related to this that have everything to do with student success and growth and all of those things. So yeah, we need to get these things done, and then look at how we can work together going forward to continue to improve the physical plant of all of our campuses. We're making the most out of the federal dollars we have, but we have to look forward several more years to continue to improve what we have, the place we have to live in and do school.
Well, we certainly look forward to seeing when that advertising comes out, and we'll look at that as a public start date. And watch this, because again, it's been a long process.
And I have to say, our staff and our parents and our teachers have worked industriously to demold their environment as much as they can. So in most of the schools, you don't see the problems, but we know that we're going to have and this is the part about the EPA qualified inspectors that can get in and look in areas that we don't normally see and have the tools to do air sampling and those kinds of things that those of us that are trying to clean up our home where we live don't have those things. So that's the part that we really want to have, is that high-tech look at it, so be sure that we've got it whipped, and then keep it that way.
Well, appreciate you responding to my questions. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think Senator Tell has questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Tydegui?
Thank you.
I'd also like to recognize my colleague, Senator Roy Kanata.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening to everyone that's here today. I know you had a long day, so and the information that you provided, it does cover a lot of things, but one thing that I didn't see here that I would like to see the next time you present this presentation is the facilities for sports, like the gym, the baseball field, the football field, things like that. If there's any repairs that are going to be needed for these sports facilities as well on the campus. And I didn't see anything. I'd like it separated so we can tell what's classroom and what is the sports facilities, gyms, et cetera, in the field. That would be very helpful. Tell us where we are at that. Because we're having concerns well, actually, Mr. Chair, if I may, just a couple questions, because Senator Brown and I have another meeting that we have to attend. We have to leave here in about 10 minutes. And so if you can just indulge me in a couple questions, because I'm sure our chairman is going to ask some of the questions that was asked during GECO, but I do want to know that it seems that some of the promos that are going on, or not promos, but the fundraising that's going on at the schools where you're selling, students are selling food or candy, things like that, to try and raise some money for their prom or their graduation. Some schools are following the law and some are not. It seems JFK is trying to be, good upstanding students and follow whatever public health needs and keeping within the guidelines, but we're being told that other schools are not. So I'd like you to look into that one, too, to find out on the fundraisers. Second is, and help these students, by the way, Mr. Superintendent. We're trying to get as normal as we can to a child's, life as a high school student, where they had to enjoy all the other stuff that we did back in the, I want to say 80s, but I'm kidding myself, 70s. Your 80s, 60s. 70s. And try and get as back to that norm as possible, where they can share in, raising funds, enjoying their clubs that they belong to. And, this is a great way of staying out of trouble, too, for our kids, availing themselves of this opportunity for clubs. So I'm hoping we get some more support on your end to provide a location for them to be at as much as possible, because there's really no place for them to meet in most cases. And so I hope you look into that, per your each principal, to give you a report on that as far as the high schools or even middle schools. project manager, and moving forward on the project manager on the Simon Sanchez, has a project manager have been chosen already for that?
No, it has not.
Okay, how long is that going to, do you think that's going to take?
My understanding is they had one bidder, and that bidder was not selected, so I'm assuming it's going to be put back out again. But we've set aside the funding to support that.
Okay. Just a couple more, Mr. Chair, if you can indulge me here. One of the concerns, actually, it's really scary to think about, but, many of these kids that we're finding who are getting out of the bus when it's very dark at night, go to these bus stops, and it's very dark, it's scary for them, and we've heard some incidences where, some of the kids were attacked in, I think it was in GDOE, they brought it up. So what is DOE doing to ensure these kids are safe, even though they're dropped off at the bus station, their bus stop? Are you looking at maybe putting solar lights on the bus stop or something to keep these kids safe? Because many of them are coming home at night when it's really dark, or leaving to go to school when it's still dark as well. So this is something that needs to be addressed. I know you have a lot on your plate, but the worst thing that could happen is something does happen and then you start addressing it. We don't want to do that. We want to be proactive. Let's not wait until an incident happens moving forward. Also, libraries. Have you been working with the mayors in villages that have libraries to allow your students to avail themselves, or extra hours, because they are coming home late sometimes, that they need a place to study, and many times when the school is a double session, they really have no place to go to study, or meet with libraries in villages that have them to allow that extra time for the students.
Those are areas we certainly can look into, and especially the lighting at the bus stops. I agree that the bus stops are difficult in most areas.
And my last one is, Mr. Chair, if I may, is the bus. Being crowded on a bus. We were told during the community outreach at GDOE that we've had bus drivers tell students to sit on the floor because they're packed. And that's a no-no for sure. So we heard that from a parent whose child came home and the bus driver told him to sit on the floor because there was no room in the bus. So this is something that was brought to our attention. Several of these things were brought to our attention. I appreciate you looking into it for me. And of course, the separation with regards to the facilities on sports. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Typhoon. I did have a few things. I noticed in your presentation on the double sessions, you didn't list probably what is the most difficult double session going on now. That's the double session between John F. Kennedy High School and Simon Sanchez High School. So we had a community caucus meeting up at GDOE the other day, and we were just overwhelmed. So much testimony relative to this particular double session, and I got to say I'm disappointed that I didn't see it in your presentation. And I know, Mr. Superintendent, that we have discussed this issue at probably the last 3 oversight hearings, and I've implored you each time to do your best to seek an alternate site for Simon Sanchez so that we can put an end to this difficulty that we're placing on our students. And I was in receipt of, like I said, just an overwhelming amount of testimony from students in the public school system. And I'm just going to go ahead and share some of these concerns with you, and then we can continue with the rest of the presentation. And these were written by social studies students at John F. Kennedy High School. Hoffaday Senator Barnett, I am a student from JFK, and I don't approve of the double sessioning going on with Simon Sanchez. Students from both schools are losing education due to the lack of the time that we were in school. Our classes are shortened to only an hour, and we don't have enough time to learn the things that we need to. Also, having to wake up really early for school has been really hard for me and my family. To add to that, I don't think students can function properly at this early of a schedule. There's another letter here from Paulo, who writes on the subject of double session. Hoffaday, Senator Barnett. I'm a student from JFK, and I sincerely hope that the double session will end by the start of next school year. Although we, the students, get to go home 2.5 hours early, it decreases the amount of time we get to learn. This affects our education because the teachers sometimes rush through the topics we're required to learn, and the double session doesn't give us enough time to thoroughly learn the topic. This affects both Sanchez students and JFK students. I hope this double session will end soon. Sincerely, Paulo. Here's another letter. Hoffaday, Senator Barnett. I'm a student from JFK, and I would like to talk about what has been happening this school year. I would first like to talk about the double session that has been happening. I don't mind sharing the school with Sanchez, waking up early and going home early. However, if this were to continue to next school year, I believe there's going to be some issues that may occur. Even just doing a double session for 1 year, it's already affected us negatively. Yes, some might think it's cool that their class time is being shortened, but our education is being shortened too. Because of this, we are getting further and further behind on our education. Please remember, our education depends on the future generation. Dear Senator Barnett, my instructional time has been very limited compared to last school year. Due to the instructional time being so limited, it has resulted in most of my work being rushed. It makes me feel impromptu and anxious because my work seems rushed. I have been told by a good amount of teachers that we are behind in lessons and standards because of the shortened time. I myself as a student feel rushed, haggard, and even unprepared because of the lack of time that has been given to me to learn and actually dissect the lessons. As a result, I end up taking matters into my own hands by trying to educate myself with videos and online examples. A lot of the student population at JFK will most likely disagree with me as they do like the shortened time. However, this is negatively impacting our education. Not to mention, it's become very difficult for the athletes to practice because we have to wait for each other and the faculty to evacuate the school campus. As high school students, we're in our final years, and when we were given the guidance and knowledge for college and adulthood, I don't feel prepared for either one. Hoffaday, Senator Barnett. I'm a student from JFK, and I feel like we are robbed of the time we once had. The double session with Sanchez will cause a lot of problems down the road because of the situation of not knowing where to put them after this year. Personally, I feel later in life I'm not going to be as attentive in college because of this routine that I'm getting used to. High school is supposed to be to get students ready for college or the workforce, but if the time is shortened, then we aren't prioritizing the futures of the students at JFK and Simon Sanchez High School. Yeah, so I got about 100 letters. And when we attended the community caucus in Jigo, it was a little bit of a wake-up call because I think that we've lost sight of the impact that this is having on our students. And when you don't even bother to put it on the agenda, it's just disappointing because these kids, I mean, even these kids, right? The stereotype is kids don't like school. These kids are writing to the senators in the legislature begging us to come up with a way to help you end this double session with JFK and Sanchez. And so, again, I would just ask on the record, what is the plan? Are we anticipating having the Sanchez students attend another campus at the start of the school year? Or is the plan to have them double session until we complete construction, and who knows when that'll be, of the new Simon Sanchez campus?
We're going to have to find a different solution because I don't see this project for Simon Sanchez moving in any timely manner. And it could take 2 to 3 years. once the contracts are let, before that campus is ready to use. Now, I was given the suggestion that the Tejan campus was initially intended to be a facility where we could move different student bodies on and off while their buildings are being worked on. So that's, I think, one of the first things we need to look at. That's going to be a community discussion for sure. But that's, another high school is offered to have, to host, but at the same time, you're looking at the time schedule. And the other part, of course, is the transportation and moving kids back and forth, so.
But if we're anticipating that we're going to move FB Leon Guerrero students back to their home campus at the start of next school year, would that then free up Ukadu for Sanchez students?
Yes, it would. Okay. So if the issue is space, yes, that frees up Ukadu. But then GW is also offered to be a host, but we need to look at the actual schedule, because what I'm hearing from the correspondence you received, I wish I had received that because I haven't seen anything like that.
I'd be more than happy to provide it to you.
And I'm serious, because the conversations that I had with students at Southern when we had our session up there was much more useful to me as a leader than some of the adult conversation that I got, because the kids came just like these young folks did and put it down very succinctly about what they needed to see happen for their school. So I'm concerned about the length of instructional time, because that's what the kids are pointing out as well. So whether they're on the Ukadu campus or the GW campus, how long are they there, and what are they able to do?
Right. Yeah, I'm sure we don't want to move from double sessioning them at one place to double sessioning them at another.
I mean, if I can, but if you get into the discussion about dissolving a student body, you're going to have a lot more letters. So these are not simple shoot from the hip solutions. We'll have to spend quite a bit of time with it.
Right, and I would just say that, these students they deserve to have you deep into this process, not just starting it today, and that's what I'd say. So let's think outside the box. If we need to break up the Sanchez population and, put them at different locations so that they can avail of a longer school day, let's do it.
Though we should be able, and I'm running rough math figures in my head, so that if we were to split the population and put them on two different campuses with the home campus during their regular school day, that's a possibility. I don't know how palatable that'd be for the identity of the school and the community identity.
I mean, they're already struggling with that, and just based on the testimony we received, right? I think the student population, the staff, the stakeholders, Simon Sanchez, they know that the school is not going to be built overnight, but I think they also don't deserve to be put in this purgatory, for lack of a better term. So again, for what I would say is probably the 10th time, I would just ask that you get with the deputy superintendents and let's think of, I've discussed this with you before, alternate sites, a warehouse, somewhere where they can really avail of that adequate education. And I just think that we're putting so many challenges in front of these kids because of the situation that they're in. And they know it. They know it. I mean, they see the impact themselves. We have kids who are begging for more instructional time, right? And so we have to do our best to accommodate that. And I understand the challenges that you're facing, but this is, again, a conversation that we've had many times. And so I just have to say I'm a little disappointed that we aren't further along with a solution for this, this dilemma that affects, as you heard, both students of John F. Kennedy and Simon Sanchez High School.
Okay.
Thank you. I think we can proceed. Senator Kanata, did you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Although I wasn't able to attend the GIGO caucus oversight hearing up there for Simon Sanchez, I certainly did take time to watch the whole YouTube video. and I did take some snippets from that. So one of the issues, of course, with DPW oversight, as well as mine, I wanted to clarify, was there any communication regarding the students sitting or standing in that bus? And is it from Simon Sanchez students? Can you clarify that situation?
I didn't know anything about the situation.
Okay.
So in terms of school buses, should have no one in the aisles. In high school students, normally it's 2 to a seat. Elementary, you can go 3. And so we need to look at the overcrowding. I don't know if it was a situation we've had a couple of instances where DPW didn't have enough drivers and they had to amend their schedule. So I don't know what the specific cause of that situation. It certainly shouldn't be at all, but it shouldn't happen every day either.
Thank you for that. I just also, when I was riding the bus, it was a 2-on-3 or 3-on-3 on each side of the bus. So I'm very curious if you can get to the bottom of that situation with DPW. On another side note, has there been any talks with DPW regarding overtime being compensated for the bus drivers?
Yes, there have, and we've been billed for it.
Okay. This is a very crazy possible opportunity. Do you happen to know the capacity of Southern High facility? And what is the population down there being utilized? I mean, what is the facility's utilization rate right now? Do you think it could help alleviate, I mean, this is really uniting the North and the South if it happens, but do you think there's any feasibility regarding putting Simon Sanchez down with Southern High? Because I don't think half of that school is occupied.
There's quite a bit of it that is not. They're at about 56% of their capacity, but their capacity is just shy of 4,000 that the campus is designed for, according to the engineering studies we have, and the southern population is right at 1,500.
Okay.
It's a might fit. The big issue is transportation, but
okay.
That's a possible. We can certainly look closely at that.
Okay. Also, have we thought about working beyond the, I mean, we have teachers who probably are going to be better served in this situation if they can work over the weekends in trying to put the students to have their full days, right? Also the teachers having full days with their students. Do you think that's a possibility of having a full year of school instead of the proposed calendar year, instead to also use weekends on an alternating base? You think that's an opportunity that can be thought through?
It's worth examining. You get into a number of difficult areas, but it's certainly worth the conversation. So what I heard you describing is we're actually open 7 days a week.
Correct.
And stagger the access.
Yes, I think you can balance out and stagger out the schedule if we propose that idea, right? They would still have 2 days off and probably Monday, Tuesday offset it so that all the students, all the teachers are having some kind of mesh schedule staggerness, right? But yeah, I'm really frustrated with the procurement of the project manager for Simon Sanchez. I've been frustrated since 2013. I know you're fresh here, but we really want this school done. So again, I continue to ask if there's anything I need to help you do and move this forward. I mean, other than its procurement process right now, we're trying to get it bidded out, and it is bidded out. So we're just waiting on that to be properly procured. But other than that, do you have any other issues with Simon Sanchez's rebuild?
Wait, I don't have a thought at the moment, but we certainly should get together on that and see if we can move it. If we're going to do it, we need to do it.
We are going to do it. We're definitely going to
rebuild. And I know that that's very important to you, Senator.
Other than that, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. It's important to all of us, Mr. Superintendent.
Some of it is, it's personal.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely, Senator Kanata is an alumni of Simon Sanchez. So, and just relative to Simon Sanchez, what I'd like to see is maybe you form a subcommittee and you guys look at ways that we can, because I think this double session with JFK and Sanchez, and I want to thank you for attempting to knock out all the double sessions and the alternating school schedules and the cohorts, because those are posing similar challenges that we're seeing at JFK and Sanchez. But I'd like to see JFK and Sanchez included in that, and maybe the next oversight hearing we could actually kick around some ideas from your end, because I'd hate for school year 24-25 to start, and we're going to be in the same situation where you have kids from JFK waking up at 4:30 in the morning to go out. We had teachers and students testify. They go to school in the dark, and then we have other kids who come home in the dark. So, thank you.
Okay, we can do that.
I know I sound like a broken record. But thank you, Mr. Super.
We have to stay on these topics until we get them solved.
The status of the mold mitigation, the DLAN tickets, to echo Senator Brown's comments, I feel like we've been hearing the same thing for the last 3 months, but now you're saying that you feel confident that we're going to get these projects out from March, but I'm not as confident, because I know that GSA right now has only 2 buyers to assist all of the line agencies, and so I don't know where you guys are in the queue, but like I said last month, you really have to work the channels outside of the process. You have to, this is Guam, and I know you've been on the job 6 months. You have to look at who's close with who and try and get them. That's just the way it is, because, 9 months. We've been talking about this for 9 months, and, I've been trying to assist you with getting the money back, and then you changed your mind, and now we're just in this situation where obviously, right, you're not happy, the committee, we're not happy with and I don't think you can call it progress. And so, I just repeat what I said last month, is you got to go up the food chain, and you really have to involve the administration in these conversations about the delay in these very crucial services. I don't need to talk about the fencing and security issues posed by a lack of fencing. I know you get it. The mold mitigation as well has been a priority according to the Guam Department of Education. Since the day after the typhoon, and so try and use those channels to get some action. And otherwise, I'm going to light a candle to Santa Maria and hope that it really does come by March. And I actually got an email about Southern High School, and this is a little off topic, but I received a message about a pole that's down on the campus. You know anything about that?
It's the only one that I know of is one of the light poles on the football field, and we're working with GPA to have a crew sort that out. Okay.
And back to the AC vendor. So I noticed that you said your priority was the schools that are in the cohorts or the double sessions, and I was also in attendance at the PTO meeting for Finnegodzin Elementary, right? And thank you for that. I know that they had asked you to prioritize them relative to the installation of the ACs, which was great, right? But now I'm getting all these calls from all the other schools, specifically Stumbo Elementary, Wenegal Elementary, and they're wondering, how do they avail of this fast-track process? And Weddingale, I'm not sure if the vendor has been to Weddingale, but, I was asked to just ask you, Mr. Superintendent, and I think it's what I talked about last month when we deviate from the plan. Now everyone else is wondering, A, why they are not a priority, and B, how do they become one? And so if you could just maybe speak specifically to
I'm
those
looking for the Weddingdale one, because I know that was in the slide.
But other than that, I did see your numbers, and I noticed that, I would just say that I think it was the pressure that we applied to this vendor, and then thank you to your deputy superintendent. Let's keep that pressure on. I think that we're making more progress than we were last month. And I know that a lot of people are upset about this vendor contract. I had a staff attend a meeting at GDOE Central, and nobody's happy, right? And so, but I do recognize that he put in 100 units in the last week, and so we just got to keep that fire on him. And then I think you also have to do a better job of maybe communicating to these schools who are wondering where they are in the grand scheme of, aircon installation. Maybe if you could just communicate it better, they'd have a good idea about, where they are.
And as I look at the schedule, Region 2, the Lujan district has only got 2 more schools to do. So that team can be broken out to go into the other sections. Okay. So that'll even speed it up more. Because the other 3 regions have got quite a few more schools in them.
In Alahan Middle School, I had received a report that there was, and I'm hoping it's inaccurate, that there was only 1 working restroom. Is that accurate? No? No. So other than...
Okay, so my understanding is that they have enough restrooms for the number of kids that are on campus.
Okay. And
according to the health department ratios.
Right, right. And so they're in a cohort schedule now, which means you have X amount of the population going on one day, then that population stays home the next day. Correct?
Well, they have enough for the kids when they all come back.
Yeah.
And they will benefit from quite a bit of work coming in the near future across the whole campus.
Right, and so in your presentation, you said that Alahan Middle School is one of the schools you're working on to end the cohorts, but if they only have enough restrooms for half the population to use, what's the timeline for ending the cohorts? Or classrooms, or usable space is what I'm assuming is the issue. Go ahead, John. Just state your name for the record, sir.
John Palomo, Facility Maintenance. It was the grid on the classrooms that's the issue, is the classrooms. The classrooms are the issue. So they got damage, I guess, water damage. They took the grid off the ceiling, so the lights are hanging, and we can't have kids while the lights are being suspended by wire, so we're putting it back up on the ceiling. About 22 classrooms to do that. And 1 classroom would just be the bottom of the chalkboard, but we're there, we should be done. But the restrooms are all okay. I have a team there, so if I ever need any problems or there's a problem there, they can respond right away.
Okay, so we have enough restrooms, it's the
Yes.
classrooms. Thank you for that, yeah. And then stick around, because I did have some questions for you on the Head Start report, which is forthcoming. And actually, I think we can go and proceed with your presentation, Mr. Superintendent.
I just had a couple of other things that were on your agenda.
Sure,
That
yeah.
were not in the slide. You had.
You want to just run through the slides, and then we'll cover the DODEA and the other issues, the proposed budget?
So okay.
We left off
I'm not
on,
hearing clearly. Well, we can go to Head Start
Head
right
Start,
now.
yeah. Thank you, sir.
Where is she? There she is.
Good evening, Angelina LePay, Acting Head Start Program Director. So just to bring us all back into focus, active supervision is our area of deficiency based on our federal review. Again, active supervision involves the strategies that we use to maintain constant vigilance of our children and help them to learn and stay safe. So what we've been doing since the last time we talked is we did have our early childhood consultant come in. She conducted classroom observations from a reviewer's She conducted classroom observations from a reviewer's standpoint, right? So coming in, looking at what would a federal reviewer come in, what would they look for, what are they wanting to see? And then she took that observation, she took also our program's ongoing monitoring data and combined that into a training that she conducted with staff. as part of that training, we also did a pre and post knowledge assessment. So that's to see, like, did they learn from the training that was conducted? The results of that are then areas that she's targeting with individual supervision, individual support of the teaching staff, along with the assistance of our education coordinators and mentor coaches. So one-on-one, these are the areas they're struggling with, wanting to make sure that we fine-tune all of those strategies. While she's doing that, we have also started to deploy everyone that we can from our Head Start Central Office. So we're operating on bare bones starting this week, just for the first maybe 2 to 3 hours of the day when we know there's a lot of transitions in the school. So our staff are going out there to help those teaching staff, point out to them, because we've all received the training, not just the teachers. We all know what we're looking for and what we need to do. So they are supporting the transition of children from arrival into the classroom, if they have to go to the cafeteria to eat, when they go out to play, that particular area is what they're doing to help support. Also, when our consultant is on campus and working with the teaching staff, the rest of the staff will step in so that we maintain ratio for the children. So that's active supervision. You can go to the next slide. Background checks. I'm happy to report that we are just on the cusp of meeting everything we need to do for this. What I mean is the Head Start performance standards require that all program staff and our interns, our consultants have the background check with fingerprinting. Every single one of those people have been done, the current staff and interns. We have also done the background check on our school aides who the principals have assigned to provide paraeducator support to our special needs children who have it specified on their IEPs. With that, we have met everything regarding that regulation. What we're working on right now is Head Start has some recommendations for new hires that our HR division is working on doing administrative clearances for, so following that process. And then the last part of this area that we need to secure is the signed memorandum of agreement between DOE and the Superior Court, the Judiciary of Guam, excuse me. It has been returned by the court to DOE for our legal counsel's review, and then once it's approved and routed for signatures, it will be done. So that's the background checks. We can move to the next slide. The next area of noncompliance is outdoor play areas being kept safe. I'd like to start with our fencing. So our fencing project, I'm happy to report that our procurement office had followed that through all the way to execution of the purchase order. The purchase order was handed off to our vendors. We have 2 vendors. It was given to them on Friday, so they were able to sign off, receive it, everything's secure, they can begin work. Thanks to our principals, at 5 of the schools were identified by the vendors that they wanted to go and look at so they could start bright and early the following week. So 5 schools, the principals allowed us to go in on Sunday, and our staff went out with them on the site to confirm the maps and the locations of where we want everything to be put. So that there's no errors, right? If you dig that hole, that's where the pole's going to go. As of yesterday, we completed our site visits of all schools with the vendors, and as of today, they are currently ongoing fence installations at 7 schools. There are 4 other schools that are anticipated to start by this weekend. Again, there's this process of digging the holes, going back to do the cement and the poles, and then waiting for that to set, moving on to the next school, and then coming back. But by early next week, we would have had 11 schools in progress. We have a total of 20. Let's see. Next is our playground project. Our capital improvement division is working very closely on this, the scope of work. Our education team has provided or is providing the specifics on the type of apparatus, the shade structures, the trike paths that we would like to put in. And once that is finalized and given to CIP, they'll be able to complete that scope of work, which will then be transmitted to procurement. So I mentioned before that we had applied for the carryover and the money coming over, right? So that money is not yet in our account, but procurement has assured us that they could start assembling the bid packet. So as soon as the money is deposited, like they're going to do all the paperwork. So when the money is deposited, all they need to do is go in and write the account number. And then that process can be put out for bid. Next on our areas of noncompliance is the facilities being free from pollutants, hazards, and toxins. So the first area is the lead testing. Again, we did have our water tested by the UOG Weary Water Quality Lab. They tested a new classroom, which was Weddingale 2. We have 2 classrooms there now. When the schools went back from UJOA to their home school, the principal was able to identify a second classroom for us. So that classroom was tested in December. We also tested the 2 schools that tested positive for the cafeteria sinks. So Weddingale 2 was cleared, they passed. JM Guerrero and Machinao, if you recall, the faucets were changed out. Head Start then conducted the second testing, and the results we received were that they passed. But in order for the schools to begin using those 2 particular cafeteria sinks, they need to be released by EPA. So late this afternoon, probably about an hour or 2 ago, we did receive 1 notice from EPA on JM Guerrero, so they are cleared to begin using that cafeteria sink. We are now only waiting for Machinao to be released by EPA. As far as the lead in the paint, again, those were tested by qualified lead-based paint inspectors. We had 1 school that was overlooked in August, which was PC Lujan, and again, the second classroom that was added at Weddingale. So those 2 schools were tested for lead-based paint. PC Lujan had no findings. At Weddingale, that classroom, in the entire classroom, they noted 2 cabinet doors that had detectable amounts of lead in the paint. They had advised us, the paint inspector had advised us that that does not have to go out for mitigation. All that needs to be done is our maintenance worker to remove the doors from the hinges and put new cabinet doors on there. So as soon as we procure the plywood for that, we will take care of that once the children are dismissed for the day or on the weekends while they're working on the playground. So that will be done. The last part of that was that we were waiting on the second opinion for the mitigation of the other 3 schools, which were Finnegazan, Truman, and Price. So the inspector in that case was able to do his assessment. He has not completed his report to us yet because he had advised us that he wants to, he's consulting with the initial lead-based paint inspector on the data that they had. And so he will then combine all of that and make his report to us. He had told us that he's likely to get that to us by tomorrow. So we continue to follow up every day and remind him that tomorrow's Friday, and we'll be waiting. And then the next area on facilities is our shared spaces. So you can, shared spaces starting with our awnings. So again, for those who may not have been here last time, we're referring to the spaces that are shared by Head Start and the larger school community, that are areas that our children may be passing through that may have potential hazards. So the 5 schools were identified. So as we were editing this, somehow it got deleted, but Chief Brody is a new school that we did not mention last month or December when we were here. Chief Brody, CL Titano, DL Perez, JM Guerrero, and PC Lujan all have awnings that were damaged for one reason or another that Head Start has identified we would like to address. So our CIP has again gone out and worked with an engineer to do the scope of work. Once that's done, then it will be put into a packet, and that will also go out for bid. The other shared spaces that we would like to address are the restrooms at the schools of DL Perez, Marshall Sablon, and Price. These are 3 schools where the Head Start classrooms do not have a restroom within their classroom. And so our children are using the shared spaces of that school population. Marshall Sablon was worked on when our facilities people were there. When we did our inspection, there's a couple more areas that we would like them to address. So Mr. Palomo has added that to his list. DL Perez is being assessed, and Price Elementary, our principal has identified there that the stalls are rather tight, and so he recommended and we agreed that 2 stalls will be converted into 1 ADA compliant stall, and it will meet the Head Start specifications. And that brings us to the end of our facilities. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mrs. Lepay. Senator Kanata, did you have any? Good? Okay. What kind of communication have you been having with the federal Head Start representatives?
So we talk to them every 2 weeks on a Zoom call. Our training and technical people team will be returning on island on Wednesday, February 14 through the 16th. They have not given us their finalized agenda yet, but they did advise that on the first day they will be visiting every Head Start center, and then they will be working with us to ensure that whatever documentation we have, whatever evidence we need for the review team when they come, that we're on point with it, and they will review our documents to ensure that we have not missed anything that will be reviewed by that second team in March. So they'll be back there, but we speak to them every 2 weeks, and every week they give us new things that they would like us to work on and provide by the end of the week. So very closely.
That's good to hear. Can you just kind of elaborate on the shared, because I know that there are certain violations or areas of noncompliance that we absolutely have to correct by the time they come back in March, and then there are others I'm aware that we just have to have our mitigation plan,
backup plans
in place. So if you could just run down those areas and maybe just delineate which ones we absolutely have to meet and then which we can get by with a plan.
Okay. So we can start back with the awnings. At Chief Brody, the awning that's leading directly to our Head Start classroom, we noticed when we were out there with the vendor to mark off the poles that the awning right above there is kind of needs to be addressed. So in that case, we would need to address that if the children are walking through that area. If the children are dropped off on the other side of the classroom, they walk through and they do not exit through that awning, then we don't have to worry about that because we're avoiding that area for our children. So at this point in time, the students just started going back to eating in the classrooms. We're following up with the schools where they're still eating in the cafeteria to try to address whatever concerns the principal may have. So in this particular school, if the children are walking to the cafeteria, they will be walking under that awning. So there's no other route to the cafeteria from the classroom, unless they climb up the hill through the grass, which is, not safe.
Okay. Chief
at
Brody.
CL Titano, the areas that we identified were the awning at the back gate where the car riders are dropped, as well as the gutters in front of one of our classrooms. And then if you're familiar with CL Titano, there's a side access road and a side gate that comes out of there with the awning there. So we talked to the principal this week and suggested that until that's addressed, that the children for Head Start the car riders can be dropped at the front of the school so they avoid that whole section. And we're coming up with a plan to make that a little bit more seamless because it is, a one-way in, one-way out. There's going to be a backlog of students being dropped. We recognize that. So we're trying to come up with a backup plan to make that a little easier. What it could be is that at CL Titano, there is a side gate that the principal has proposed we might be able to use. So we're going to go out there and look at whether that awning can be quickly repaired so that we can access that. And so that's something we're looking at. If not, then our children will be dropped in the front and we will avoid the back area until it's repaired. So that one has a solid backup plan and a potential plan B. At DL Perez, the awning over that walkway There's really no way around it. When the Department of Interior project was done, it fell short of the area that we had noticed. So the principal has come up with some ideas. We need to talk to the right people, so our friends at facilities. This is the principal's idea. Do you think it'll work? And then we'll know for sure whether or not that's a possibility for us. At PC Lujan, let me go back to Jam Guerrero. Jam Guerrero, for sure, there's a definite, clear backup plan. Our Head Start classroom has a gate right in front of it. So at this point in time, our children are all dropped off at that gate versus where the 2 awnings are in the front of the school. So that has a very clear plan. PC Lujan has the 2 walkways from the parking lot, one in front of the office and one leading to Harrell, because we have car riders on one side, bus riders on the other. And then closer to the classroom, there are some awnings leading from one building to the next, where our children would pass through. So what we did on one small area is we provided a tarp, and the school covered that area, secured it so the kids can pass through without, it's been raining a lot lately, and that seems to have worked. So we need to take a look and see if we can do that with other areas so that they can safely walk through. Right now, the principal has it cordoned off with the orange safety mesh. So we are still exploring that as to what we might be able to do if we know that it's not going to get done in time. So that's something we're still looking at. That's about it. With the restrooms, those are the restrooms. Those are the restrooms our kids use. They need to get addressed, at least the stalls that they're using.
What about the restroom at Marshall Sablon?
So at Marshall Sablon, facilities and maintenance they were very innovative, in my opinion, in addressing the situation there. So the concern of the principal was that public health requires that the stalls be at a certain height from the floor, height to the top. But we explained to facilities that we need to maintain line of sight with the children when they go into the restroom. So what they did is there was one stall that they cut the door on, and they put the hinges. So when our Head Start, and there's a way to secure it, so when Head Start is in there, the Head Start staff will drop that panel. We can see the kids, they can safely use it, and then when we're done, we lift it back up, and the rest of the school population can use it without any concerns from public health. So I thought that was great. Solved all our problems.
Thank you, Mr. Palomo. Yeah. So you've had the support from facilities and maintenance?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Very much so.
So I was out at CL Typhoon. It's kind of funny how you're describing the mitigation. I mean, you made it sound fancy, but basically we have to walk the kids away from anywhere that's leaking. And so, if we don't...
There's tin kind of coming up,
right,
there's gaps.
And so when I was at CL Typhoon, that was one of the things the AO who had take me around the campus, she said, we could come in this way, we could come in that way. But that's the mitigation, is trying to find a creative way to get these kids from point A to point B, the Head Start classroom, without walking through any area that's not
potentially
leaking.
hazardous, yeah.
Yeah, so on the areas where the awnings aren't able to be repaired, or the leaks addressed, or is there any logistical component you need to do to set your routes ahead of the first week of March?
Yes, so we talked to the principal. We also talked to the teaching staff, and the principal met with the teaching staff. And so we came up with some ideas. They talked to their parents about it. And then we will implement the first plan, make sure there's no, unforeseen issues. And then as we're doing that, which is dropping off at the front where the buses are, we'll be looking at that side gate to see if we can fix that awning more quickly, so that then they can be dropped off on that side, which would clear up some of the backlog on the other end of the school.
On the background checks, was there anybody who was employed by the Head Start division who didn't pass the background check or any of the required checks?
So our EEO officer handled that, and everyone, she told me, has cleared.
And then just one more on the active supervision. So the Head Start personnel are under Head Start, right? But are there ever any instances where they're moved to another part of the school to assist with any types of shortages?
So, DOE, that's what we've been doing, right? We've been sending central office staff to help cover in all the schools. Head Start has been exempted from that because we cover our own classrooms. So it's very rare that the office is fully staffed in the mornings because when someone calls out, we go and assist there instead of asking on the school to send additional staff. So anyone who's been available starting this week, we've been sending them out there as that backup with the active supervision during transitions.
Are you still needing to hire any positions?
We do have vacancies. We have 7, 8 school Head Start aide vacancies that we recommended for. So we're just waiting for them to go through the background check process, and then we'll know whether or not they're going to join our Head Start family. We have some other vacancies. As you know, our program director retired, so we have that vacancy, a health coordinator position, a couple family services staff, and we have a teacher who just retired. So there's a few positions that need to be filled.
And then while we address the areas of noncompliance, there are other areas that we also cannot fall short in, right? How are we in those other areas?
So overall, we just need to ensure that anything that was part of the review findings, that those are addressed by March. So those are the deficiency and the 4 noncompliance. The only noncompliance area that I didn't single out here is the ongoing monitoring. And that's because we've embedded the results of our ongoing monitoring into what we're doing here for active supervision and all of those other things.
What about the mitigations for the playgrounds? Are those all in place?
So the playgrounds that are salvageable and will be used by Head Start, maintained by Head Start, yes, we went out with our aides over Christmas break and we cleaned, water blasted, did whatever we could. There's some minor things that still need to be done before we allow the children on there. And so during the time that the fences are being put up, our priority is I can't remember the names of the school, but I know there's 11 school sites where we decided that that playground can still be used by Head Start. So we're just gonna go out there, maybe change a few bolts, address some of the small areas of rust, do what we can so that any other potential hazards within that structure is addressed. And that way when the fence is done, the children will be able to go out and use those playgrounds while we're working on the playground designs for the other ones. But even if we open it, I just want to say that just because there's an apparatus, let's say at Talafofo Elementary, we are still going to add to that. So every playground that Head Start occupies will have a shade structure, right? Because right now there's just a playground apparatus. And then we want to add other things to it. So we're looking at, does the padding need to be replaced or enhanced? Is there space for us to put a bike path for the tricycles? But for sure, every school will have a shade structure above the playground.
What about the alternate play locations for the schools that aren't able to procure the equipment or have equipment that's too damaged to be used?
Right. So if it was equipment that could not be used, we identified a new space to create that playground. And then after March, when we have more time, we will remove the other equipment that cannot be kept or used by the rest of the school population. In one of our schools, like at CL Taitano, that playground on the bottom, although it just needs some minor repairs, the feds had pointed out to us that it's not, the steepness of the hill, it's difficult for the kids. If you have a child who's in a wheelchair, it's a little bit more, cumbersome and potentially dangerous. So they wanted us to relocate to the other side. However, we have spoken to the principal that the playground can be, there's little things that need to be addressed, and if you would like to maintain it, we don't have to remove it. If you can figure out a way for the rest of your student population to continue using it, then we'll leave it there. If they want it removed, like at PC Lujan, we have our old classroom was on the side where Harao is, and the playground apparatus there needs to be removed. So we have assured the principal that after we address everything by March, we will take care of removing that equipment, probably with the help of our friends at facilities. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a Fed Head Start visit happening anytime before March?
Just the one that I mentioned with our training and technical assistance team. So those are they're contracted by Office of Head Start to provide support to us. And they've been working very closely with us. We're on the Zoom call with them every 2 weeks, and they will be on site from February 14 to 16.
The superintendent was quoted in the media recently as saying we were going to meet the non-compliance issues and that we weren't going to lose the program. And I know I sent you that story on WhatsApp, but is that also your estimation of things?
I do believe that we're going to meet it, and I believe that our team, training and technical assistance team, our Office of Head Start counterparts also believe we're going to meet it. I just want to say that they sent us our refunding application, which is due April 1st, and so I think they believe in us, and we believe in us as well. Okay. Yeah.
And Superintendent, I know you understand the urgency, and you're given the full support to Head Start?
No, absolutely full support of the program. We've put all of our resources that we have that can help the work they're doing to get it done.
Okay.
We divisions are coming together to support us. The principals, the rest of the school community, procurement, facilities, CIP, whatever we say we need, they come to the table. If there's something that's held up in the procurement process, we call Deputy Joanne and she'll walk through and check what's the holdup on the approval process. So I would say that the entire DOE family is working very closely to support Head Start.
And so I know you said that you hadn't received the lapsed funds from your...
Not yet.
Okay, so but the paperwork's all in, and what are we waiting for?
So there were certain things in December, the board approved the budget revision and carryover. However, our regional office had said that those two actions should be separately approved. So it was approved by our board in the January meeting, and once we received the draft minutes, which they have assured me is going to come to us soon, so the staff is working on it. The meeting was just on Monday? I'm losing track of days. The weeks are going by really quickly. So the meeting was on Monday. I spoke to Tia today, and she told me that she would get that to our board chair for her review, and then I can upload that. But everything else has been uploaded, and the regional office is aware that it's been approved, and they're just waiting for the paperwork for that.
I thought I saw something about a carryover of $19,000.
Yes. So if you recall, I did mention that we had a low-cost extension of about $130,000. They extended us till the end of December 31st, to finish that funds. What happened is we worked very closely with procurement and spent the vast majority of that money. But when the quotes came in, some came in lower than was anticipated. And then there were a few quotes which procurement was unable to validate because, that was like Christmas break time right before the new year. There were a few that they were unable to validate. So at the end of the day, we had $19,000 left on the table. And we know that there's a budget crunch across DOE and the government, and that $19,000 is not something we want to leave on the table. So we spoke to Office of Head Start and asked, is there a way we can get an extension to use that remaining $19,000? And they said yes. They would give us until, the most they can give us is March 30th to expend that funds. Again, that was approved by our policy council and the board, and it's just going through the approval process now.
Senator Kanata, did you have any questions? Okay. Thank you, Mrs. LePay, for your thorough report. You said you had something more on Estimbo Elementary to add?
No, there were three other items that you presented.
Yeah. So you're good on that. Let's move to shared facilities for double session schools. So the reason why I added this onto the agenda is because I'm just hearing concerns, complaints even, from some of the schools that are inside of double sessions. And so at the community caucus, the Sanchez community had talked about how they're unable to use facilities at JFK. And I had also received a communication from, hold on a second. Our coach who had just basically said they weren't allowed to use the facilities and they have to practice at Sanchez, for example. And so last night I gave legislative certificates to the ESA girls basketball champions, Simon Sanchez Sharks, and one of the things they had talked about was having to practice at Simon Sanchez. There's no aircon, no running water. My son plays baseball for FBLG, Go Hawks. And they're having a practice over at FBLG, and you know they do it at 10:30 in the morning, and then you know they go to school from noon. So I guess my question is, why am I hearing about these different concerns about the schools being hosted at these double sessions locations, not being able to avail of using the field at Ukadu? Or again, using the gym at JFK. And I know Ukadu and JFK are leased schools, so is it something related to that?
Excuse me. Those issues haven't come to me, but they're here now, so we'll have to look into it because we should be able to host all of those activities.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's just another way that these double sessions are impacting the kids, And so if you could look into that.
Yes.
Yeah. And I believe Ukadu baseball field, the lights haven't been repaired yet, and so I was sent a video. And I'm not sure if it was a girls' team. I don't know if it was softball. Is that softball? Softball, yeah. And they were practicing in the dark. And so sometimes the parents will line up the cars and light up the field. But I just think that if we're in this agreement with this school to use their facility for the Guam Department of Education, then they should be responsible for repairing these things. I mean, it's been 9 months since the typhoon, right? So I just ask that you follow up with these schools, JFK and Ukadu, and just ensure that the students who are being hosted there are given an equal opportunity to use the facilities, if you could.
Yes, the lease schools are causing us, well, I'm going to put it that way. The lease schools present a challenge, especially with repair, and then that's in their funding cycle and the availability. We're still working that. They've got a representative here from the states this week, and then we'll have one here next week as well. We're trying to solve that problem.
Thank you. DODEA discussions. So the reason why I added this on the agenda is I know we had met on this issue, but it continues to be reported on in the media. And I know that you had talked about a little bit here at the last oversight hearing, and you had mentioned that DODEA was, you were taking them on a tour and they were looking at certain facilities, and that they were anticipating looking at, well, they looked at Southern, they looked at the Northern Elementary Schools, and also Ocean View Middle School. And that's what was said on the record in the hearing, but then you and I had met subsequently, and you shared more information with me that was then contradicted in a media interview with the Admiral. And so while the conversation with you has been one of integration and possible absorption of not just DODEA students, but other students who don't necessarily have the eligibility to attend the DODEA school, somehow coming over to the public school system. But the Admiral, when interviewed, had talked about DODEA looking to acquire facilities exclusively for the use of Department of Education activities, schools. So I'm just kind of wondering, are we not on the same page? Why are we hearing different reports about this issue?
speculation on the part of some. The intel that I have, what I shared with you about the engineering folks coming from Okinawa, that's exactly what we did. They communicated to me that they were looking at, okay, if we're going to upgrade, what's it going to take? And they were doing a detailed engineering study of, and then we also provided all of our Corps of Engineer drawings that we have from the study that was done in 2019. They have all of that. The Admiral's statement is news to me.
It was on KUAM News.
Right, yeah.
I'll send you the link.
Because,
yeah.
But I know that his intel channels are different than mine.
Whose are better is what I want to know.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
But I'm supposed to have a visit next week with the director of DODEA, the person in the senior executive service from DC who makes that decision. So the question then becomes, what is their intent? What do they plan to do? We know that there are more Navy families. We know there are more Air Force families. We know that there are more Army families because the missile defense thing is an Army function. And then we know that when you bring any sort of technology-driven system, with them comes tech reps from the factories, the companies that make them.
And so these types of employees would be the ones that don't necessarily fit
that will go,
in the DODEA equation.
Yeah, on foreign soil, unless the law changed, and I haven't checked really to see that, but what I'm familiar with is on foreign soil, U.S. government contractors can attend DODEA schools if they pay tuition. On U.S. soil, they don't have that right. So there will be the estimate that I saw from another planning group that's in the government of Guam that's showing me 2,000 to 4,000 kids.
And these
but we haven't seen any of them yet. So.
Right. And so these 2,000 to 4,000.
Right.
Kids.
Some would be military, some would be civilians.
So we don't quite yet have an accurate estimate about how many students we're anticipating.
Not yet. But I hope that I can get a good sight picture next week.
And I only bring it up again because our conversation was really about absorbing students into the Guam Department of Education school system. And so when I heard the Admiral completely contradict
he's got a different point of view.
Right, yeah. And so obviously as the Chair of Education, I want to make sure we're talking about the right point of view.
My objective is to understand who and how many folks we need to serve, and then provide the resources to do that.
So how does this factor in our efforts to close and consolidate schools, which was also mentioned by you in previous oversight hearings? We have a need to do a little bit more analysis, but we're operating across the system at about 73 to 74% of capacity. Some schools were close to maxed out. Some schools are about, the lowest one is 41% of capacity. So the first thing I want to do is equalize that load, and if we can shed some facilities that reduce our expenses, that's the first thing to do. I was holding off to get better information about what sort of influx we might have, because it would not be a good idea to close down facilities and then find that now you're overcrowded. So the timing is important, and I'm not really willing to wait much longer than next week to start that process, because just as we're going to talk about high schools and the suggestions you've made, that will be part of that conversation as well. Those are things that we need to spend quite a bit of time in the community sorting through and make a good decision that works as best it can. But if the statements that the Admiral made are accurate, then that means, okay, we want to sell some campuses.
So that
It was news to me too, sir.
You know, that sets up a whole different thing. It also
Right.
provides for me a capital improvement program funding that I could use on all our other campuses. So it's not lost on me what the potential is, but I don't have that stream, you know, to the Joint Chiefs level
Right.
to know where
Okay.
that's all going to go.
Just keep us informed on it,
I
please.
will.
Last item, the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget. So I have here the 2025 proposed budget, and
we're not in it.
don't spoil the suspense. Yes, you're
as
not in
I
it.
am painfully aware.
Yeah. So what's the status? I know that you guys have asked the legislature for an extension.
We asked for an extension, and that's been approved. We're working through the process to have it in the hands of Senator St. Augustine. I asked him to give us that opportunity. It would be the 21st. That gives the board time to. We're at the point where the budget is built. We're refining the last bit of adjustment to it. Then we've scheduled for the 9th a work session with our finance committee from the board to review it. They'll make a decision on that, where then it goes to the full board for a vote on the meeting on the 20th. And we're prepared to deliver the package the way it intends to be, that is required to be put together, all 17 copies and all of the things that go with it on the following day.
I'm just going to say, for the record, I've been hearing some grumblings about this proposed budget, and I mean, I'm hearing $389 million.
Yeah, and you're hearing wrong.
Okay.
We're down right at the 300 level.
That's encouraging. Something else I heard, and I'm hoping this isn't accurate, but I was able to learn that in the proposed budget that you presented to the board, it included significant pay raises for yourself and for the deputy superintendents, to the tune of a $40,000 pay raise for yourself and $40,000 also for the deputy superintendents. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I was under the assumption that the board determines your salary, so I was a little confused as to why it would be relayed to me that the proposed budget for fiscal year 25 includes such a significant increase for yourself when you've only been on the job for 6 months.
Those figures were a budget wedge for planning purposes. If you don't have anything, then you can't do anything. We've corrected that. It's not in there.
Okay. I hope I don't see that in there. Only because
I was not making an assumption, but in my experience in developing budgets, if there is the potential to put something in the out year, and we're talking over a year from now, if you don't have a wedge in the budget, then you're looking for, well, can we or can't we? And I'm trying to, just as I would like to be able to build into the budget a fenced capital improvement fund, so that we always have money to do that regardless. It's a
So
difference in practice.
You're basically saying that you're anticipating a $40,000 raise, and
Well,
that's why
no.
you included it in the budget?
But, no, I'm not.
Okay. Because that's going to be a hard sell. I mean, $300 million is going to be a hard
But-
sell already, only because, Mr. Superintendent, we're talking about, I mean, you have drilled it into our heads about the enrollment numbers being down. You've consistently mentioned the consolidation and closure of schools. So when I hear about a proposed budget that includes what I like to call Christmas list items, many personnel that I don't think is essential, are essential, personnel specialists, a lot of these positions that really have nothing to do with delivering academics into the classroom or otherwise improving the current state of DOE. My advice to you would be to whittle down as much as you can, because it's going to be very difficult to deliver that budget and those Christmas list items come budget season, and that's just...
The budget that will be taken to the committee for working with is going to be very close to what it was last year, but it would also advise everybody to understand that the big changes in utilities, because right now that's being charged off against ARP. There's two things playing on that, and the first is when we turn on all 3,000 air conditioners, the power bill's going up. It's a trade-off, and the utility rates have increased. But if we close a couple campuses, we can offset that, hopefully.
Or if we get that solar up and running.
Well, and we've got one of the projects that's starting with Siemens got a solar package in it, the one at Orat Chalampago.
Okay.
And we have been working with Guam Power to look at the possibility of making all of our campuses able to support themselves electrically with solar power.
Okay, Mr. Superintendent, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Nothing that I have to present.
Okay, yeah, I think we've exhausted.
Trying to keep the legislature informed. We've got a lot of work to do together. Like I've said before, we're all in this situation together.
Yeah.
It's going to take us time and a lot of effort to get it out. I do want to give credit to my team. They're working at pretty much max capacity, and they're making a lot of progress.
Yeah. I would like to also commend the facilities and maintenance guys. I mean, the people that I talk to in the department, Mr. Palomo, they speak very highly of your division, and you are very popular because everybody wants you at their school. Okay, so. Mr. Superintendent, we're just about wrapping up here. I do have there's an opportunity for public comment if anyone would like to give any public comment, but I would just again like to end with the takeaways. I think the priority should be, and I'm encouraged, in Alon Middle School going back to full-on face-to-face on Monday to Mooning Elementary. So we're making these baby steps, but I really would like to see more of an effort related to ending the double session at Simon Sanchez and JFK.
We'll be working together on the high school situation. That's going to be a little more difficult, but we can do it.
Yeah, I know we can. We just got to think outside the box. You got a good team behind you, so shake the tree, get some ideas, and let's come back here in about 30 days with some good news.
All right, we will. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. We do have an opportunity for public comment if there's anybody who would like to provide public comment at this time. Okay. If not, we will conclude this hearing. The committee will continue to accept written statements on today's hearing within 10 business days from today, which may be mailed to my office on the second floor of the Guam Congress Building at 163 Chalan Santa Papa, Nagatnya. You may also send your statements to us at malafungtion@guamlegislature.org. That's MALAFUNKSHUN @guamlegislature.org. Si to you all for your participation. This oversight hearing is hereby adjourned at 7:25 Chamorro Standard Time. Guahusi Senator Chris Malafunction Barnett, está. Adios.